I'm Joe Pardavila, and this is the Forbes Books Podcast. And nowadays, when a baby is born, they're handed an iPhone. Now, I'm exaggerating slightly, but over the years, schools have embraced technology and started using tablets as part of their curriculum. And because of that, my guest this week recognized a gap in the marketplace. He set out to develop high-quality headsets that not only provided a top-notch audio experience, but are designed to withstand the rigors of daily use by students. His name is Mike Guerena, and he is the founder and CEO of ThinkWrite Technologies. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Joe. How are you today?
I'm excellent, and you have such an amazing origin story because of the fact that you were like a teacher, and then you become an entrepreneur. Like that's like straight out of the movies.
Yeah, and it was it wasn't like I woke up or, as a kid I was dreaming about being an entrepreneur. I think, sometimes sometimes the universe opens up a little bit and you see something that maybe other people don't see. And I just had an opportunity and something that happened to me where I saw the future basically. And I foolishly went for it.
Talk to me first, like let's go way back to being a teacher. Was that sort of like your end game? Like, hey, I'm going to school and I'm gonna I see like the Whitney Houston song, I believe the children are our future. Yeah. I want to guide the young generation. Was that it?
Honestly, I mean, I was an English major, and so it kind of it just kind of naturally happened. I didn't go to college thinking I'm going to be a teacher. I just went to college thinking I wanted to read literature and write. And then, eventually it evolved. Once you finish school, you're all of a sudden, okay, what do I do with my life? I got a 23-year-old daughter that's kind of in the same boat right now. She went to school for something, but doesn't necessarily mean you're going to walk out to to that job or whatever it was. So that was me. I just kind of felt like, education made the most sense for me. And so, I started teaching with the plan that assumingly I was going to be a teacher, probably, like everybody else that was there, just, a lifer, right? Because, a lot of teachers, when they start, that's what they do. They don't transition out.
When did that transition out happen to you? How far along were you teaching before this sort of Oprah aha light bulb moment went off in your head?
Well, it's interesting because, again, there's different pathways in education, right? So some people, become a teacher and they stay a teacher. For me, I actually kind of started veering out. I started doing some outside work with professional development training teachers. Early on, I was the kid that played a lot of Atari, and had access to a lot of technology. I wasn't programming computers at a young age, but I was always kind of had a gravitation towards it. I just became the person on campus that everyone went to for technology pretty quickly, right? Because I knew how to plug things in. In fact, I used to have to take an alternate route to my class sometimes so I could get there without all the teachers grabbing me saying, I need help.
You were the IT guy by default, right?
I was the IT guy by default. And so I became, the trainer for the district pretty quickly. And then I started training with one of the universities. We had a grant program that opened up technology training for the entire San Diego County. And so I got recruited for that and became actually ended up going on special assignment and doing that full time for about a year and a half, where I was going all over training hundreds of teachers. And this was the late 90s on how to use technology. And then I kind of got bit by there's more out there in education than just teaching. So I started gravitating towards being more of a support person with technology, and not so much like the plugging inside, but the the learning side of it. Not so I think you have to know how the nuts and bolts work, but the curriculum and how to really engage kids and really use the power of technology. And so I ended up going into a position that was at the county office in Orange County, California, and that's kind of where, in a weird way, some of my entrepreneurial opportunities came from. I started a program there that we basically built these animation program for the entire county with middle school and high school classes, and we were connecting them to actual animators in the field over video conference, and students would show their work, and then the animator would give them live feedback. And then I was doing some other programs where we're bringing authors in and actually doing live video conferencing with them. And so I started to have to develop this program, a budget, had to go out and get sponsors. I had to really grow it from from a germ out to a full-blown program. So doing that really, again, kind of set some of the structure for me of, when I eventually started the company. I actually had some experience. And then when I went back to the school district I started teaching with and became the ed tech director. And we actually started one of the first one-to-one iPad programs in the country.
Wow.
Where every student had a device. We actually threw out our textbooks and went to complete digital curriculum. And at that point, I was also working with a lot of the companies that were doing the digital curriculum. And so I actually started having interactions with the CEOs there. And again, all these things I started getting, these connections, so that when I finally had that moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, what we're doing here in my district, everyone's going to eventually be doing, and they're going to need things like headphones that are going to be, very reliable, durable, that are going to last. And so when I made the transition over, I kind of had the skill set in a way. And even when you're a classroom teacher, you have to be entrepreneurial in a way, right? Because you're really developing your own program, and you have to really sell learning to the kids. And so all those things made it easier. Again, when I finally did it, there's a lot I had to learn.
Yeah. It was almost like MBA by osmosis. It was, you were just picking up little things at a time, and it all added up to you becoming an entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely. And the way we did it, we didn't go out with the company. We didn't go out and say, okay, where's the big investors, right? We have an idea, give us a bunch of money, right? We had to do it the opposite way, which was we had to, really bootstrap and make things work. I mean, I was building things in my garage basically, and trying to figure out how to get a product that we wanted out to the market.
Awesome.
So so it was the same thing. If I was going to set up something for the classroom or the school, I had to kind of do it on my own.
So let's circle back to something you mentioned there about working in the school district and transitioning from hard textbooks to tablets, which I'm sure at the time, around that was like, this is science fiction. This is not a thing that we'll be able to do, because I'm old enough to remember that schools were like, we're lucky to have a football team. We're lucky to have any organized activities. How are we going to make this transition to everyone having a tablet that they all have the same exact one to use for school? So can you talk me a little bit? I mean, you don't need to go too much into the weeds, but how were we able to make that transition from textbooks to tablets?
Well, it was one of those things that we really had to kind of look at the future and the benefit, and we had, up to that point, we had access to technology, but it was really, there's 6 computers in the classroom, right? Or there's a lab, right? So the only way to do it was to rotate kids in, but it would be almost like, the way I always looked at it when we were, to sell it, was that when I go to work, I don't have to rotate to my computer, right? Which is my main, tool, right? Every kid needs the device if we're going to maximize the learning. And so it was kind of, we had some really, a supportive school board and administration, and community. We ended up going out to do a bond, to help support it, because again, it's a lot of money to get a program up and running like that. And then we brought together, really, every school district has, innovative teachers, right? And so you bring together a team of people, and that's really what we did. We brought a team of teachers, administrators, and we kind of visualized what learning would look like if every student had a device. In fact, we even did a test run the summer before, where we basically had a whiteboard, and we would just figure out what we're doing and then test it with the kids.
Wow.
And almost like the kids had a summer school with learning, and the kids were instrumental in helping us figuring out really how to kind of kickstart it.
Was there any pushback from whether it's the board or local community of like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to afford this? Like, what was kind of like the environment like when you were launching these programs?
Yeah. I mean, of course, I think when you go out to the community to ask for support, there's all types of points of view. There's points of view where we don't want to fund anything with education, right? Or this stuff's a fad. And so you had to deal with that. But fortunately, when you take it out to the voters are gonna choose, right? And we had a majority of the population in that district that said yes. And so once you've got that, you have kind of a mandate, right? At that point, at the school as far as this, our school board, fortunately, we had a very unified school district. It's not like that in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And that was one of the fortunate things, like I said, working with this program and everything we did in that school district was that there wasn't these. It wasn't politicized. It was really what's best for the students.
Wow.
And
what
so
a way
again,
to live. I don't even know what that feels like.
I know. So it's just, again, when you have the full support, it makes it much easier. You still have to do it. Even if you don't, but and again, for the most part, the teachers were all on board. I would say there were a lot of them were more nervous than anything else, which creates a little bit of resistance. But they, in general, again, even the ones I was a little worried about at the beginning, just because of their, comfort level.
Yeah.
Is when I talked to them, and because I really coached all of them that first year, because we didn't go all out for everybody the first year. We did about a third of the staff, and I think the biggest success factor was how much they let go and let the students help them, and the students kind of drive it. I remember we had one teacher, one group that were like, okay, we're going to teach the students an app a month or something like that, right? And I'm like, oh, that's not going to work.
Yeah, they move a little faster than that. Yeah,
and because they were trying to control it, right?
Yeah.
And within like a week, I think the kids had figured out all the apps were already making movies, and it was just like they had to change the way they're doing things. And again, I think that's why we're successful, is because it became a partnership with everybody. It wasn't a teacher control, It was about letting the kids discover and also enable their learning, and that's where success comes from. Is when you really kind of create more of a student-centered learning versus just a teacher-centric learning.
Did you get any pushback? Because I had already missed this wave as a Gen Xer, but did you get any pushback from folks as, oh God, all these kids are now going to cheat on tests because they have these tablets with the internet? Was that ever an issue, or how did you control that? I'm curious.
Yeah, again, there's always it's always that concern, and I think it's interesting because I always try to push people to do more project-based and authentic learning, right? Where you show what you're learning versus you have to memorize or do a test. And it allowed us to kind of go into that direction a little bit more. The other thing I always told people was that, Google's here to stay, So, if I'm out and I'm trying to figure something out and someone's, in real life, someone's not going to test me, I'm going to just try to find the answer. And, teaching kids about information and information literacy, again, it enabled that. And, I think it just had to help structure more of a real world environment with school versus, again, going back to the kind of more of a more older way of thinking, in that, memorize something so that they have to kind of regurgitate it, right?
Yeah.
And things that are regurgitatable, are easy to look up. Again, there's always that concern, but again, I think if you create a system or a structure, we really tried to design the program so that we could take the teachers, the students, and the learning to a higher level versus a lower level of learning, which is really about memorization.
Yeah, it is funny though, because there is a fine line to this, Mike. Because I'm sure you've heard the phrase digital amnesia, which we all now suffer from, because none of us remember any phone numbers, we don't remember addresses, we don't remember any of that.
It is interesting, yeah. And so again, I think it's a challenge because as new paradigms are created, right, you don't want to completely throw out some of the old, learning. It's just like, even like the whole idea of penmanship. People were really concerned about kids losing the ability to do cursive handwriting. In some ways, there's some research and there's a lot on the fact that you sometimes can retain better when you do write.
Write it, yeah.
You're right. And so we actually had a notebook program, and we gave styluses to all the kids so they could write on their iPads if they wanted to, and take notes that way. And then the nice thing was that, like, I was the type of student that, was not very organized. So if I took notes, chances are those notes probably disappeared into the ether somewhere at the bottom of my backpack, or the dog ate it. But the notes were always there because they were, digitally there. We and everything was backed up. So
It does come back to the memorization thing. It's funny that you say that about writing to memorize. I remember when I was doing acting, I had so much trouble like memorizing lines, but the one
Yep.
trick I always did was I would just rewrite the lines I was supposed to be memorizing, and it just worked somehow. So I guess in a way there'll be some sort of digital representation of that in the future, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I think when kids are engaged, they tend to remember things better too. Like my son's like an encyclopedia, as far as like philosophy and history. I mean, he'll connect, 14th century Bulgaria to something that's happening in China and how there was a connection point. And he's not referencing anything, right? But he's really passionate about it, right? So, I think we tend to remember things when we're engaged and when we have some emotion towards it, right? So
Yeah.
if you let kids be a little bit more passionate and follow some of that, I think they learn a little bit better. I always loved geography, so it was always easy for me to remember all the states. But I had classmates probably that once they took the test, it was gone.
So what's the capital of Wyoming?
Wyoming is Cheyenne.
Ooh, all right. Took you a second there, Mike. All right.
Well, I'm also my brain is also older now too. So.
True. So let's talk about what I like to call the entrepreneur's conundrum,
Yep.
where you
Yep.
see a problem and you fix a problem.
Yep.
Tell me, what was the problem that you saw that you thought you'd be able to fix?
Well, it was interesting because, again, I still have a pretty strong memory of this. So when we went to a digital curriculum, there was some programs that required headphones and headsets, especially for primary. It was some literacy things. And I remember walking to a classroom, and there was a bunch of headphones that were broken, and I had kids that were holding up iPads to their ears to listen. They were also, they were trying to speak into the microphone that was on the iPad without having the headset that was
Right.
with the close mic. And I just saw that wasn't, the learning wasn't optimized, And then what was happening too was that, when they did break, we had to send them back to the manufacturer. And then the manufacturer evaluate them, and then maybe, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 weeks, sometimes you get something back, right? So I saw quickly that you had to have a product that wasn't going to break. And if it did break, you had to have a way to get them back up to speed quickly. And so our company is known for its durability, but we also have what's called a photo warranty. So all you have to do is take a picture of the product, let us know what was wrong, and we'll ship the next day. We'll ship something out to you as a replacement, so you can get back up and speed quickly.
So to you, it was more about the durability of the headset more than anything, right?
I think especially for education, as we evolved and we started developing our own products as well, we focused on all the pieces, right? The voice is very important because it has to be heard. And there are programs that actually assessing and listening for the voice, right? Mm-hmm. And so for us, the microphone has to be placed well and has to be a really clear microphone. The other thing too is when with our headsets, we want them to kind of be very comfortable. The more kids are using them, the longer they're going to have during the day. And so if you don't have a comfortable headset, you're going to want that thing off, and it's going to distract the learning or distract whatever you're doing. We have a lot of people out in the world using our products on Zoom calls all day. And again, you want to feel like you've got something on, but you don't want to feel like it's impeding whatever you're doing.
And I'm curious because at no point during this conversation did you mention you were like a computer engineer or a hardware engineer. How did you have this ability to be like, okay, I have this idea that, the headphones need to be more durable and I'm sure affordable to a certain extent, but like, how did you then build the headphone?
Fortunately, we had some, we found people, and then, again, I think for me, the biggest find was, and this is an interesting story, is that when I was 21 years old, I took a little bit of break from college. I was, again, trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, and I ended up working as a second engineer on an album for a friend of my dad's. And it was again, the album was nothing to write home about, but the guy I worked with was a guy named Mark Hallett, and he had worked with Elton John, Jackson Brown as an audio engineer, and we became friends after that. And about I'd say in 2016, 2017, I'm at my local Rite Aid and I run into him. Hadn't seen him in probably 20 years. And at that point, I needed somebody to work with me that knew the audio side, right? I could kind of finagle my way through it, but he showed up, and now he's our chief operating officer and our head of R&D.
Wow.
And he's got
Good thing you needed some like moisturizer or something. I'm not sure what
yeah,
you needed on a visit, but yeah.
but it was weird. But he's built studios, as part
Wow.
of his career. He's an Emmy-winning, audio engineer. His company did all the SpongeBob stuff as well. But he had kind of technically retired, and he is just a master at the audio for working for years as an audio engineer. So him with his technical ability and my kind of vision and craziness about trying to really want to make the best possible product, the two of us together working with a local company that does the industrial design, and a really good factory that over in China, all of us kind of work together to produce these.
Huh. And off topic, most people, as you know, can't tell the difference between AirPods or an AirPod knockoff they find at Dollar General.
100%. Yep.
What is the separator? I mean, outside of the label, what is the guts in there that makes the AirPod cost $200 where you can go to, like I said, Dollar General and get them for $10? What is the if we get audio nerdy here, what's the difference between the two?
It's interesting because I think if and again, most of your users may not even know it, right?
No.
But it's a lot about, like, for me, it's really important to have really good detail on the headphones. So I want to be able to hear all the instruments. I want to be able to hear, I want to be able to hear the bass. But I also want to hear the higher notes on the guitar or whatever the instrument is, right? And when I'm listening to our headphones, and especially when we're in development, it was like, okay, Mark, I need this to do that. And then he would figure out how to bring out more of the detail, right? And so for the cheap stuff, again, it's almost like a wall of sound, right? It's just like, you can't really hear the detail. There's music playing, and you hear it. And a lot of people just have such an emotional connection to music that they don't listen to detail. They're listening to the music to give them something, right? I mean, think about in the 60s, a lot of the music was being developed for cars that had one tinny mono speaker in the middle, right? And so that's what the engineers were developing them for. And so really, again, I think a lot of times it's about the sound quality. Again, it comes down to some of the materials, like how comfortable are they as well. If you're really looking at the audio side of it, that's why, you have, headphones are a couple $1,000s, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a fine margin of what you're getting, once you get higher and higher up that price ladder. That's a challenge. So, but some people are willing to spend it, just like some people are willing to spend a lot more on a really fast, finely tuned car, right?
Yeah.
Where most people are happy with their whatever, their Prius, or because it gets them to where they're going.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because it is the fact that people are sort of, I don't want to say like dumb, but they don't really know what they're listening to. I mean, they're just, they don't know if they're, like you're saying, like you're hearing the guitar or hearing the treble or hearing the bass. They just don't know. And some people are then spending $500 on a pair of headphones when they probably don't even need to do that.
They don't need to. They're, like Beats, right? People spending a lot of money on a Beats just to get the label, right? And so, and again, the thing is, everybody, has different listening. Some people like bass, a lot of bass, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to gravitate towards a headphone that's got a lot of bass. For us, we like something that's a little more balanced. And so, and that's what we're developing for. But, there's a wide spectrum of products available for everybody. And that's the beauty, is that, we don't have to develop for every single person, right? With any product, you just need to know who your audience is and make the best product for them without trying to, make it so that everybody likes your product, so it's just hard to do that. I mean, you do have different models.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting going back to what you said. Remember, you're asking about what, maybe what were we seeing that other people were doing?
Yeah.
One of the challenges, and there's not a lot of headphone companies that are education specific, but the ones that are out there, for the most part, where they were creating like 20 different headphone lines or headphones, and no, you couldn't tell the difference between any of them. Right. And so, like, when a purchasing person has to go buy one, they're like, I don't know which one to buy. So we always thought, and if you're familiar with In-N-Out Burger, In-N-Out makes like, basically one burger. It's on the menu, but it's like the best, one of the best burgers you can have. We said we want to do the same thing, but with headphones. We want to give them the best possible on-ear headphone, the best over-the-ear headphone, but we're not going to give them 10 choices. Again, we want to give them the best possible one. So that simplicity, again, allows us really to get to where we are. And when we had the explosion that happened because of COVID, our company grew almost 4 times, and we're able to focus our production into like 2 lines of products versus companies that had 12 lines. They weren't sure which ones to produce, and so it made it much easier to scale up when we had fewer product SKUs.
Okay, well let's dive into this a little bit, because we talked about the why and the what, but we kind of went over really quickly over that. How the hell did you pull this off? Because unless you are, Mike, I don't know you that well, unless you're independently wealthy and come from a long line of oligarchs, I don't know how you were able to start up a company like this from scratch. So how'd you do it?
Well, here's the thing. I actually, we started in 2013, and I didn't quit my day job till 2017.
Oh, okay.
And
so you're burning the candle at both ends, it sounds like.
Yeah. So fortunately, we're actually a family business. My cousin came on early on, and my wife was one of the first people talking, and she took on some responsibilities, and we didn't pay ourselves for probably 2 years at least, and we just worked to get the company up and running. Like I said, bootstrapped it. Fortunately, I had a lot of connections of other schools. We went to trade shows. People really liked our story. They liked what we were doing. They liked the the durability of the products, and so we just kind of made it work. And then eventually, when I was able to finally leave the district, we had a pretty comfortable base, and just grew from there.
So how many headphones did you sell ballpark, like that first couple years that you were, so when you were sort of like double dipping, working on your job in this?
Here's the interesting thing is, so the first year of, and again, my dad helped us with a small loan. It wasn't millions of dollars like some people get, but we basically paid for the first run of headphones. And it took us, the first year took us that full year to sell our first 25,000 headphones.
Okay.
Or headsets. We were doing just headsets at the time. Every year we doubled, trebled, or whatever. In 2020, we sold over 1 million headphones and headsets. And last year we sold close to almost, I think, about 1 million as well. So
wow. So it's safe to assume you paid your father back.
We did pay him back, yes, and actually it was nice. I was able to pay him back while we were earning. So we actually don't have any. Again, there's no investors beyond the people that are part of the company.
All right, and so this is a question I like to ask companies that are that stress sustainability and selling things that you don't throw out after 2 wears, only whether it's clothing.
Yep.
So your headphones are pretty. I don't think you like to use the word, but unbreakable. But they're solid. They're not gonna. You're not gonna need a new pair of ThinkWrites every 6 months.
Yep.
How do you sustain that when people can have their ThinkWrite headphones last them for years on end? So that's my question, because I asked that to like people who make like sustainable clothing. I'm like, so you're telling me you're going to sell jeans that you pair this pair of jeans and they're going to be able to wear them for like 20 years. So how do you then bring that customer back?
It's like the really worst business model possible.
Yeah.
But I think what happens is that there's a lot of students and a lot of schools out there, and what we're finding is that we probably pushed more. Obviously, we pushed more out in the last year and a half, 2 years than we're expecting. But there's we get new customers coming in too that buy other products that fall apart, and now they're buying our product. And if there's like a 3 to 4 year buying cycle. Sometimes they just want to replace them because that's just the mentality. But I mean, our headphones, should be able to be out there for 5 years at least. But I think what happens is that we don't always sell to the entire district either. So you have a district that will buy them, and then they'll buy some more the next year and more next year. So we're finding that there's still a lot of customers out there that we haven't reached yet, and so that's our big challenge right now is how do you get people that don't know who you are to buy your products, right? Because we get a lot of return business, but it may not be as much as the first time around if they bought a significant amount.
Because they're lasting long. They're not breaking on them,
Exactly.
for a month.
Exactly. So for us, the challenge is one is to grow to more customers in education that we haven't met before, but we're also now looking outside of education. Looking at medical, we're looking at consumer. How do we get more people in general just to have access to our products, so that we're selling out, just not maybe in the niche of education as much, because we think we developed a product that is great for for any type of user. But the challenge is, how do you get the word out when there's just so much competition for and I hate to use the word airtime, because airtime really isn't what it used to be, right? But whatever those channels are for getting people to know your products, that's what we're working hard on right now.
Awesome. His name is Mike Guerena. He is the founder and CEO of ThinkWrite Technologies. Mike, thanks so much for the time. I am listening to this on headphones that are not yours, but I guess I gotta go order some, because I think I'm too old for school, but anybody could wear your headphones, right, Mike?
Absolutely. In fact, we always say, 5 to 90. In fact, our ultra durables, they're designed, they go all the way around the ear, so people with hearing aids can wear them. My mother-in-law wears them.
Awesome.
So no, I think that's the key, is that you have to have something that's going to be able to meet the needs of everybody. And so we think our products do.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, Mike. And that's it for this episode of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure you take a quick second to subscribe so you automatically get new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I would love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.